Oregon flies across the country, comes into the whiteout game, and stuns Penn State in double overtime. And yet the Nittany Lions are about to go on a heater in recruiting.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State football in this crossover episode. My name is Zach Sako, and I am your host of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. And I am joined by Brian Smith, host of The Portal and Locked On Seminoles, the recruiting expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network, but also just general college football expert. As we are going to talk about Penn State recruiting and reacting to the game once again, takeaways from this game. But Penn State is in prime position to land some key in-state prospects, as well as two potential 5-stars at wide receiver and quarterback. But first, a reality check as Penn State loses another big game under James Franklin. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. All right, Brian, let's talk about your takeaways, because I've shared tons of them on the football field, live after the game at 1 a.m., and talked about a lot of the flaws within the offense. But I guess you kind of have a bigger picture look at it, just because James Franklin is now 4-21 against top 10 opponents. All the deck was stacked in favor of the Nittany Lions. Oregon's a hell of a football team. That is a national title contending team this season. They are either number 1 or number 2 with Ohio State. But what is your assessment now of Penn State after doing what they've done for the past decade?
Basically, they are who they are under James Franklin. I mean, it's nothing that you haven't covered. Do I think you're going to win a national title with him as your head coach? Probably not. But here's the sidebar. At some point, your quarterback just has to be accurate consistently. Like he threw that bomb on that first touchdown. That's as good a pass as you'll ever see at any level. But then they'll throw a 10-yard hitch route and he'll two-hop it. Yeah. Like he's just not clutch on a consistent, like he's frustrating. The bomb, like I talked about, that was as clutch as it gets.
I know. That's a pro throw.
Hell, that's an all-pro throw. Like the coverage wasn't perfect, but he put it where his guy could make a play and the DB had no chance.
Yeah.
That's why somebody will probably still draft Aller. By the way,
we can fix him. We can fix him. Yeah. That's the idea.
It's like the dumb girlfriend that thinks that they can fix the boyfriend who's an idiot. That's drafting Drew Aller. I don't think he's a pro quarterback. He's not consistent, but he's got the arm. He's got the size. He's got the guts. He runs. He's just not very consistent. How much of that is James Franklin's fault? 1%? At some point, you just got to trust the technique you've been taught for God knows how many years to throw the ball the same way every time. And he doesn't. So Penn State's got every resource known to man for football. There is no shortage of cash for Penn State football. So I just don't see why you would trust him. Like I've listened to 2 podcasts that went over the game, and it was like I was looking in a mirror. They said, Drew Aller is just not the guy. I was trying to see if anybody had a different view, because that was my take as well, and I think it too. I think he will get you to 9-3, 10-2 every year, but you're not going to win anything with him as your main guy.
And that's the idea, right? This is the conversation that we have over and over and over again. We said we framed it as that, Brian, they can finally buck the trend. They can finally rewrite the narrative and say we are a tier 1 team. Which means a true national title contender. You should favor us in more of these games. No, they're still tier 2. Even when the deck is stacked against them, and it's stacked in favor of them, I should say. That's what's so frustrating. And hindsight's, they didn't play anybody in this and that. Maybe so, but I imagine that Oregon would have liked to have had a bye week. They would have liked 2 weeks to prepare. They would have liked that game in Autzen Stadium. They would have liked Penn State to fly across the country, had a clean bill of health for the most part. And against all those odds, Oregon still went into the whiteout and won that game fairly decisively until now. I'll give Penn State credit where credit's due. They came back. They fought, and they forced double OT. But for 3.5 quarters, it was all Oregon.
Yeah, watching the game, and then I just went back through the highlights earlier today. 2 things that I noticed. Is it me, or does Singleton not look himself? Like
nobody does. Drew Aller, Singleton. I guess Drew Aller somewhat looks mostly like himself, depending on who you ask, but Singleton doesn't. The offensive line doesn't. Guys like Zane Durant. We've talked about Zane Durant ad nauseum, how this guy can be an All-America caliber player, and now apparently he's overrated.
I wonder how many, I say this all the time on Locked On Seminoles, and I'll say it here too. There's no such thing as an accurate injury report at the college level. Ever.
Oh, that's fair. And James Franklin would never tip his hand.
Yeah, it's just
never.
It is what it is. But like, especially quarterbacks, and I know that pisses bettors off, you're never getting one at the college level. Not even remote. Forget who it was. Somebody, the Utah coach. Just as an example, a couple weeks ago, his quarterback missed multiple days of practice, and he didn't put him on the injury report. They got fined, and he doesn't care.
No.
So that just puts it in perspective. Does Singleton look healthy to me? Absolutely not. I remember him running away from Notre Dame's defense last year. Like, he wasn't running, like, it's not the same. He just doesn't look the same to me. And Oregon's fast and all that stuff. Yep. He doesn't look the same to me. The O-line, though, like, that's harder to grade, but that's mostly the same. What do they got, Zach? 4 guys back from last year?
If you want to be technically correct, 5. All 5 of them were starters from a season ago at some point in the season.
They're still good.
They
but
are.
They weren't as
maybe
effective.
They're not that great.
I don't know. Oregon's big up front. I knew they would cause them some problems, but they got more penetration with big guys than I thought they would get. I was a little surprised by that. Penn State underwhelmed me up front, and everybody has an off game, but like just, they run outside zone very, very well. It was okay. I don't know. Nothing about them made me think that was even a top 10 team offensively. Like they were just very pedestrian, and they got all the same guys back. It's very odd. I don't understand what it is. I really don't.
Now let's kind of wrap up with this, because the concern is that Penn State may miss the college football playoff. And that's it is a doomsday scenario, not only because, not reaching the national title is one thing, but it is definitely on the table now that Penn State could go 9-3. You bring back everybody, you go and get Amari Campbell and Trevor Pena out of the transfer portal, you reinvent the wide receiver room, you push guys out, you bring new players in, all to go 9-3 and miss the postseason. Clemson, that's kind of the Clemson scenario, and Clemson's completely out of it. But Penn State fans have now dealt with heartbreak in 2 separate instances, with Notre Dame obviously in the semifinal, and then Oregon here in this whiteout game, both at the decision-making of Drew Aller. So for you, I'm concerned that Penn State loses to Ohio State and then Indiana continues to roll along. Can Penn State beat Indiana and Ohio State? Absolutely, but you can also go 9-3 just as likely in that same breath.
Is there anybody else besides Indiana that they play on the road as a good team, or they?
As a competent, capable team, I will give Iowa its due credit. Nebraska also comes to Happy Valley, and I think Dylan Raiola and that offense are only going to continue to improve and get better, so I will never discount those 2 teams, but I still think Penn State will be favored and should win those games decisively. My concern level is a lot different for Indiana, so 9-3 is certainly on the table here.
Indiana, they've got a very good coaching staff, and they've got a top 10 pick at quarterback. Like if you gave Penn State Fernando Mendoza, I think they could win the national title. He's the accurate, on-time, every play guy. They're not as talented as Penn State, but they got 2 receivers that'll get drafted. I still don't know why Iowa went cover 0 blitz at the end of that game. That's one of the worst defensive play calls Phil Parker's ever made. But whatever. They could lose, but it's in Happy Valley, and they're used to one of those games. At some point, you got to win one of those games, right? Like it just –
I suppose, but history says otherwise.
They're winning 16% of them under Franklin, literally. So that's just such a low number. I don't know. I don't think that Penn State will struggle with Indiana's O-line as much as they struggle with Oregon's. It's massive. They're some big dudes. And that freshman running back, holy cow, for Oregon, that guy's a dude. Yeah. If Penn State goes 9-3, I think they got a better chance to make the playoff than some other teams, because their losses are going to be to top 10, top 12.
Three top 10 teams, yeah.
So, that'll be a debate. Notre Dame will be in that debate again. They don't play anybody the rest of the year. They'll kill everybody. Who gets in, who doesn't, all that stuff we can talk about later. They got to beat one of Ohio State or Indiana, though, to
Yes.
not be in that. 10-2, Penn State's in because their schedule is more difficult than some other, in my opinion. And they would probably most likely host. They wouldn't get a top 4 seed, but they would probably host. So that would be interesting as well.
Well, we're on the same page there that it will take at least one victory against Ohio State or Indiana to guarantee a spot for Penn State in the college football playoff. Now let's talk about some things that seem a little more certain, as Penn State did host the whiteout. Yeah, they lost, but they're going to pick up not 1, not 2, not 3, maybe even up to 4 recruiting victories here in the not too distant future. Let's talk about them, including a 5-star wide receiver and quarterback. That is coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIH Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa wet leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts and minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can maximize your investments, increase your savings rate, easily review finances with your partner or a financial advisor, and keep a clear view of your financial health week to week or long term. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is right, 50% off your first year over at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Penn State's in a great position to pick up a bunch of quality prospects here, and that's what the whiteout is for. That's why they hosted 200 recruits, over 200 recruits. And yes, granted, it was a loss, but you and I, Brian, would agree that the prospects are more concerned about their future than that game in the moment. So they can be the difference, right? They can come to Penn State and be the difference to get that win in a high-stakes whiteout game. So with that being said, Penn State is in a great position for a potential 5-star wide receiver in the 2027 class, and to be determined on the 5-star quarterback, but Penn State's right there in the mix. Matthew Gregory, the wide receiver out of the state of Pennsylvania, which is great. You want to keep a high-quality talent in-state. And then Elijah Haven, somebody we've mentioned in our crossover episodes, who Penn State got a surprise visit. All SEC schools across the board. And then Penn State. Interesting. No, I know Ohio State has a quarterback commit, Notre Dame, but no USC, no Oregon. It's Penn State in that mix for Elijah Haven. They made strong impressions on both. So strong of an impression on Gregory because now he has an on-3 projection to commit to Penn State. It's still, again, it's not finalized, anything like that, but if On3 feels confident enough to put in a prediction for Gregory, I will take that as a fantastic sign.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested with Matthew Gregory. Twitchy kid, can be a route runner underneath, really fast. He could play corner or safety if you wanted, but he has the speed to get over the top. He's a modern receiver. In some ways, I'm not saying he's the same, but in some ways, he's kind of like DeCorian Moore in terms of his style. DeCorian's hands are obviously unbelievable, but similar player, gets off the line very quickly, can beat bump coverage, and after the catch, he's no fun either. That's a guy that can probably play for any school in the country very, very early, and Penn State needs wide receivers. I'd imagine he would play as a freshman for the Nittany Lions. I'd say he'd start, but that's a kid that would absolutely play it. Again, I saw him at Future 50. He stood out. That's a guy that will end up with 40-plus offers, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that was something because I listened to an interview with Steve Wiltfong, who's over at On Three Rivals, and he's the one that made that projection. And he said that, hey, he will still take his time, go through his offers, go through his visits, but he still said, he did preface that I still feel strongly enough to put in a prediction for the Nittany Lions. It is going to be tough to defeat them, as he framed it. So and where Penn State already is in the 2027 class, to potentially land a 5-star wide receiver to go along with a 5-star running back in Keemon Spell, a 5-star offensive lineman in Leighton Von Brandt, another guy who's been in the 5-star category but has regressed a little bit in the rankings, Khalil Taylor. He's either a high-end 4-star or a high-end 5-star. Running back, 5-star running back, 2 5-star wide receivers, and let's not forget about Gabe Jenkins on the other side, the defensive side of the football, as a 4-star linebacker. That Penn State couldn't have asked for a better start to the 2027 class. But let's go back to quarterback, because let's complete the trifecta here of star running back, star wide receivers, star QB. This also brings in a little bit of bad news, as Keegan Croucher, who we've discussed at length on these shows, is projected to end up at Ole Miss. Okay, Northeast quarterback, not ideal. So Penn State, I would say it's kind of all or nothing on Elijah Haven. You don't get Haven. Now, could another quarterback emerge later on in the cycle? Absolutely, that's possible, but still not where Penn State wants to be. They would rather secure a QB commitment now rather than be behind the 8 ball.
It helps with receivers. No two positions in American sports, at least, are connected more than wide receiver and quarterback.
Yeah.
Haven's a well-known player. He was, ironically, but he's talked about Gregory, at the same event. They were literally throwing together at Future 50. So, I mean, it's ironic, but if you get him early, not only are you going to help get some of the kids in PA, there's a couple of really good receivers there. You might be able to get a kid from Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana, where he's from, as well. Everybody knows who that kid is, and he's a traditional pocket quarterback that is on time, on the money. I mean, that's got to be their guy now if Keegan Croucher is going to end up at Ole Miss. So
yeah,
all hands on deck to get him in the boat, if you will. So we'll see where it goes. But he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and LSU's already got their quarterback in that class. So
I know
they should have a pretty good shot.
He's from the state of Louisiana. I was surprised to see them get now. Peyton Houston's also from the state of Louisiana, but I was very surprised that they went with Houston over someone. And the margin of difference is that might come down to personality and fit within the culture, sure, right? They just might say, hey, we want Houston to commit just because we think that he's a better locker room fit than Elijah Haven. I don't know what's going on there in that regard, but it is interesting that they passed on the number 1 quarterback in the class. Granted, it's still a top 10 QB in Houston, but it opens up the door for Penn State to say, okay, then, we'll take a commitment here, but it's not going to be easy. Florida is going to be after Elijah Haven, and I think that's if you asked a lot of, and you might agree with this, Brian, if you asked other people that are following this recruitment, they would say that Florida's probably the team to beat at this point, maybe in Auburn as well, but Penn State is right in the mix. I would say it's really down to Florida and Penn State primarily.
Well, if it's down to that, I mean, Penn State's probably in a better spot as a program. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. And on top of it, seeing the whiteout.
It seems obvious, you would think, but.
Well, I mean, DJ Lagway committed to Florida when they stunk too. So, This is recruiting, brother. I tell people all the time, kids pick coaches, not schools. It makes a lot of people mad, but it's just the way it is. Although Franklin's a really good recruiter anyway. So I don't know if there's anybody else that can come along. I mean, it's recruiting again. If SC calls or something, who knows? But right now it looks like Penn State's in the driver's seat.
And like I said, it's not that Penn State can't absolutely afford to miss on the likes of Elijah Haven. And you make a great point. Hey, 5-star running back, potentially 2 5-star wide receivers. Maybe you get another one in the mix as well. Why would Elijah Haven want to pass up on the opportunity to just play in this superstar offense down the road? And with Florida, because you never know what's going to happen with Billy Napier. Okay, if you're committing to Billy Napier, he could be gone the next day. He might be here today and gone and fired the next day. You don't know. So I think Penn State needs to include that in their recruiting pitch.
I can assure you, in some way, shape, or form, that's been made by numerous schools. Penn State wouldn't even have to. They may anyway, but that's inevitable. That's inevitable.
Well, Elijah Haven, we'll see where everything ends up with his recruitment, but Matthew Gregory, great spot for the Nittany Lions. Speaking of being in a great spot for top-tier prospects, Penn State is going to do what they do best, dominate the state. There are tons, yes, I mean a good bunch of prospects in the state of Pennsylvania that are now projected to land in Happy Valley. We're going to talk about that next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, or even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And you can bet on Penn State football over at FanDuel. The lines are available for Penn State versus UCLA. Penn State is a heavy favorite. 25.5 points on the spread, minus 3,500 on the money line, plus 1,280 if you're thinking UCLA. The total is set at 50.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. And this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home. Whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years, these businesses are what bring people together. When your neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Take Rothrock Coffee in State College as an example, a local spot in your neighborhood that's been the heart of your community for years. It's the kind of place where you walk in and everyone knows your name. When you show up, when we all show up as a community, it can mean big business for local business owners. Money spent in the neighborhood stays in the neighborhood. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. Dominate the state. That's the way that Penn State likes to handle recruiting. And they're going to do just that if all of these predictions go through. On3 and Rivals making the same type of projections here for 3 other Pennsylvania prospects in addition to Matthew Gregory, one of which, Brian, I think we got to start here. He's listed as an athlete. He could play defensive back or wide receiver. So maybe there's that third elite wide receiver that Penn State just... You and I, before we even hit record, when we talked about Bonner specifically, just get him onto campus and figure it out later. Bonner, 6'2.5", almost 200 pounds, Penn Hills High School. This guy, I think, is underrated as a top 200 player and a number 7. He's listed as the number 7 athlete overall, according to Rivals. I think he's being underrated in this instance.
For those that haven't seen his film, think of a taller running back, but it can also play corner or safety or receiver. That's a powerful guy. Like, he's a very unique frame. Most kids his age, they don't look anything like this kid. He's put in the time in the weight room, and he's probably just genetically gifted, but he is put together. He can run by guys, can make some guys miss. My only question is, where will he end up position-wise? I don't care what you recruit him at. There's options. And don't forget about him as a return man, too.
Yes.
Position coaches will probably be fighting over a lot of guys, but this one, like, I don't see how it couldn't be at least 3 different coaches. Safeties coach would love him. Outside linebacker coach, absolutely. Receiver, running back, like, all of them are possibilities. You just get him on campus and kind of let it take care of itself.
Let's pivot to Abraham Cisse. This is somebody, if you're following Pennsylvania recruiting a lot, he's somebody that will pop up consistently because just a lot of potential here. 6'4", he weighs 210 pounds. So this is your classic defensive end. There's really no debating, okay, is he going to be a D tackle? Is he going to outgrow the defensive end position? This guy is a true defensive end, a weak side defensive end that will match up on the left tackle and be a pure pass rusher. He just needs to add the weight. I think that's the only question mark, is how soon will he be able to add and build the college frame?
I love the frame. 6'4", 6'5", 220-ish, has plenty of room to add weight, and he's got really long arms. He is the definition of the weak side defensive end that comes off the edge on a 7 technique and tries to speed rush. If you don't have those guys, your chances of getting to the national title game are pretty slim. And to be honest, Cisse is probably a little underrated. I know, I'm looking at 24/7 right now. They got him as the 10th player in the state. In terms of importance of position and his upside, I guarantee he'll be coveted differently by college coaches just because of the spot that Cisse plays. And I like his film. He's got some physicality to him, but he's not anywhere near filled out yet. He's probably somebody that'll weigh 240 in 2 years. But I don't think he'll really lose much of his quickness and his twitch. He's just now growing into his body. That's a big-time prospect.
Another player, and I know that Penn State fans that know recruiting very well probably want me to say Maxwell Hiller. Believe me, we would have let off if it was a sure thing. That's still to be determined. But I don't want to overlook Brandon Lockley, who also gets that projection. And this is huge because Penn State has never had that avenue to St. Joe's Prep. And maybe this is something that finally breaks down the door. 4-star linebacker, just on the outside of the top 10 in the state of Pennsylvania. He is a true Mike linebacker, in my opinion, 6'1", 220 pounds. That Lockley is, that's a good win if it goes across the finish line for Dan Connor, who's still relatively new as Penn State's full-time linebacker coach. But also, again, and I think that's the Jim Knowles factor here with his connections to St. Joe's Prep.
Yeah, I would agree. You need to, I don't know why it is that they haven't had any success there, but it's been a long time. They've been trying to knock on that door. Eventually, just the law of averages, you're going to get somebody. Oh, Brandon Lockley's a really good player. They're known for defense. It shouldn't be that hard. You're 2 hours from campus. All those things line up. And if they're on him early and he's been to campus a few times, you would think Penn State would be the choice. We'll see where he ends up taking visits throughout the rest of this year. But this is a kid that PSU fans should absolutely take a close look at. Watch his film. Good player.
And I mentioned Maxwell Hiller, so Penn State's still in a really good standing with him. You and I talked over the summer that, Brian, this is something we should pick back up on, because we really said, you identified Clemson as one of those serious contenders. Maybe Ohio State and Texas or Michigan make a push, kind of the traditional, hey, maybe it's a Notre Dame, right? Kind of the traditional 6 schools that Penn State will go up against. I guess Texas is a little bit of an outlier, but Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, that will probably be the normal top group. But Clemson kind of as a dark horse contender, if you will, because he is, I think he is a self-proclaimed Clemson fan, but the way that they've just taken, you want to talk about Penn State being a little disappointing to start the season. How about Clemson?
He told me that to my face, that he grew up a
there we go.
Clemson
So that's
guy.
where that came from.
Yeah. He grew up a Clemson fan, but they stink. There's just no way around. Like, they were down 16-0 at home to Troy. Come on, bro. That's not how you win recruits
Even Penn
over.
State didn't do that.
Look, something's really weird with Clemson. They better figure it out, or they're headed for 6-6. Mm-hmm. They just had a kid decommit, Drake Quinn, one of the best players in the state of Georgia. That doesn't happen to Dabo. Kids don't like the start of the season. They don't want to go play for a losing team. I just didn't think it was going to be Clemson I was talking about. They're not. I don't know if they're going to finish in the top 25. I'd lean towards no. So I don't know what it is. That's going to hurt you.
Yep. With
a lot of kids. If it hurts you with an Atlanta kid, what's it do for a kid from PA? Like with Ohio State, Penn State, et cetera, right down the road. It's probably not going to end up at Clemson. Him being on campus and just continuing to recruit him. Penn State's putting O lineman in the NFL. I loved that, watching that kid at Under Armour. He was awesome. I thought he was the best lineman there, and we had arguably the 2 highest-ranked offensive tackles in the country over there. He was even better. They were good, but he was even better in one-on-ones. Hiller's a first-round pick and waiting.
He already has the college-ready frame. 6'5", 305 pounds. You could play him at tackle, but he's projected at interior offensive line, and On Three Rivals has him at 16 overall in the nation. That's still number 2 in the state of Pennsylvania behind Keemon Spell, but this is a player that's a pending 5-star across the board when these rankings are truly finalized, and Penn State should absolutely prioritize him in this class.
Yeah, it's like if you get Hiller to go with some of these other kids, Penn State could trend not only for a top 5 class, but a top 3 class. He's a special player. His ranking's going to go up. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and that's saying something when he's already top 15. So that is where we will conclude things on this Locked On crossover to talk Penn State football and recruiting as well. So recruiting going on trending in the right direction after that loss to Oregon, but Penn State did what they wanted to do with the whiteout. It was the recruiting event that they had hoped it would be, and then some. He is Brian Smith, the recruiting expert, college football expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network, hosting the portal devoted entirely to recruiting and the transfer portal, as well as Locked On Seminoles. My name is Zach Seiko, and I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, subscribe to our shows for daily content around respective teams and coverage in recruiting and the portal. Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Brian, thank you for the time, the insight, and the expertise, as always.
Absolutely. Look forward to doing it again.